wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, good evening to all. Thank you all for being here today. Since the time is limited, let's get to the topic immediately. As you can see, the topic today, atheism and evolution or Islam. We're not necessarily asking anyone to make a choice, but the reason why I put this topic up there, I want to, because it will lead me to a very important point before we delve into the discussion. We live in a free society. We live in a free society. In this free society, we should be able to have discussion without judgments, without any pressure. Everyone is free to choose their view. In this diverse society that we live in, whatever view that you choose, whatever religion, faith that you choose, that is your choice. You may differ with another opinion, you may differ with another religion, I may differ with atheism or evolution, but that gives me no reason to close the discussion, or that gives no reason for us to take atheism and evolution off the table. No. This is what makes this society a free society. The discussion remains open. Everyone has the right to come to the table and talk. People disagree with Islam, and we welcome discussions, right? So living in this free society is very important to be able to talk and present your views. I am a Muslim, so I will be presenting the Islamic perspective on atheism and evolution, and I'll remain very respectful, right? And we seek that from others as well. Now, just before we move, no doubt this topic is of contention. There's many adversaries regarding this topic, especially when it comes from Islam. But remember, we must remain respectful. That gives me no reason to ridicule or mock the opinion that I don't agree with. You understand? Otherwise, there will be no toleration. Tolerance will be gone. And this is the last thing that we want. So you may disagree with me today, okay? Just as anyone has the right to disagree with others, but let's remain respectful. Talking about tolerance, talking about the fact that there are people around you that may not agree with you, we must start every discussion with that in mind. And I'm just telling you now that the other side, the adversaries, the side of atheism and evolution, seems like they are less tolerant. I will quote to you some of those people. I mean, these people, many of you might have heard. Richard Dawkins, the late Christopher Hitchens, Lawrence Krauss, Sam Harris, and many, many others. I want to just open my discussion with this. Richard Dawkins, who's a very great proponent of Darwinian theory of evolution, an atheist, he says, when I meet a person who says that they are religious, my first response is, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And he gives an example because he's talking to Christians. So he said, are you seriously going to tell me that you believe that wine turns into blood? Now there's one thing you disagree with that. It may make absolutely no sense to you, but to step into the realm of ridiculing and mocking, that is something that's unacceptable. Because, let me ask you this question. If I disagree with you and I mock you and I ridicule you, can I expect for you to further listen to me? It's impossible. You will not have that. The person will become defensive and the discussion closes right there and then. So he says, are you seriously telling me that you believe that? And you know what he said then? He said, mock them, ridicule them in public. Now that is where you cross the line. No, you don't do that. You disagree respectfully. He said, mock them, ridicule them in public. He says religion makes specific claims about the universe that need to be challenged. If necessary, need to be ridiculed with contempt. Can you believe this? Need to be ridiculed with contempt. And similarly, Lawrence Krauss. And Lawrence Krauss is one of the least respectful of the people when it comes to this area. He calls religion nonsense and calls religious figures, even prophets, Jesus, Muhammad says, these are what? Ignorant individuals. Ignorant individuals. I think the mic has a problem, right? So he says, is this louder or it's fine? Okay. He says they are ignorant individuals. And he says, your God is worse than Saddam Hussein. And what else? Your God is hateful, unmerciful, petty, homophobic, sexist God. And you know, these are just some of the things that he says. Now this is stepping over the boundary. Christopher Hitchens, late Christopher Hitchens, he says religious preaching is wicked and evil preachment. And so on and so forth. Now this is not something we're going to do, because our religion guides us to do what? To not ridicule and mock the people that you disagree with. Disagree with them in a respectful manner. So you don't have to choose one of these. I just did that so I could present my introduction, right? Now I am a Muslim. Obviously I don't agree with atheism and evolution, but I would disagree respectfully. Now, this topic is a very controversial topic. However, since I'm Muslim, I will be talking from the perspective of Islam. Now, the other side will jump in as soon as possible and say, oh, you're religiously motivated, right? You're just ignorant fool, right? Your mind is locked. You don't want to think, right? Because these kind of comments are very common on that side. But I begin with this statement of Allah in the Quran. Allah says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, were they created out of nothing? Or are they the creators? Or are they the ones who created the cosmos, the universe? Are they the creator? Are they the cause of the universe? بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Rather they are not sure. So Allah gives us these choices. Number one, you came from nothing, and there is absolutely no proof that anything can come out of nothing. Number two, that you created yourself. And if you're a sane human being, you don't believe that. Number three, that you caused the cosmos and the universe to exist. Number four, you always existed. Or number five, that you have an intelligent source, an intelligent creator. In the beginning of the 20th century, the scientists, they believed that the universe was eternal. It was infinite. It was eternal. And will always be eternal. And they believed that our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, was the only galaxy out there. But it was only in 1929 when one of the astronomers, Edwin Hubble, and by 1929, by the way, the huge dome telescopes became available. You ever seen one of those huge dome telescopes? You just go in there and they're huge telescopes. So it was only in 1929 when Edwin Hubble, he discovered something amazing. He discovered that all of those dots in the space that the scientists, they always thought were stars, millions and billions of stars, he discovered that these are not stars, they are actually galaxies. They're actually galaxies because every point that the telescope would focus in, there would be more galaxies therein. And when he discovered that, and they realized that our galaxy was just one of the billions of galaxies. Today, science infers that there's 200 plus billion galaxies out there. It's a huge, gigantic universe out there. So, Edwin Hubble, he discovered that we are an extremely tiny part of an unfathomably gigantic universe of which we are a very, very, very tiny part of. He also discovered something else. Now that's one of those telescopes. That's not a space bazooka. It's a telescope, right? You see the person sitting right underneath? Isn't that amazing? Huge. Now Edwin Hubble, he also made another breakthrough discovery. He also discovered that these galaxies were receding, meaning they were moving away from each other. And every point that his telescope would look at, he realized that the galaxies are moving away from each other. Everything is moving away from each other. So, if you were to reverse this phenomenon backwards, if you were to reverse this phenomenon, then what would happen? Then everything that exists would come back into what we call one congealed entity. Because everything is expanding. It's like a balloon. You know, if you draw dots on the balloon with a marker and you begin to blow into the balloon, what happens to the dots? They begin to move away from each other. Now if you go all the way back, they begin to move closer to each other until you end up in this point in time in which everything was one congealed entity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Beautiful verses from the words of Allah. He says, don't those who choose not to believe, don't they see that the cosmos was once one congealed entity and we separated it? And we created every living thing from water? Still they don't believe? Can you believe that this verse is in the Quran? So this was our first, this idea or discovery was first challenged by the scientific community. Why? Why was it challenged by the scientific community? Because it ascribed a beginning to the universe, which indicated what? Which indicated to a beginner. Now if you have something that began at a finite time ago, then that means it has a beginning. If it has a beginning, that means it has a cause. Something caused it, right? Because today science believes that the universe began about 12 to 15 billion years ago, it began. It began. So it indicated to a beginner, someone who began this, a cause, because anything that comes into existence must have a cause. Anything that comes into existence must have a cause. Now this is something that is logical. Now, when Edwin Hubble discovered that, he called the great man of that time. Who was that? Huh? Einstein. Right? He called that big man to come and see this discovery. So when Einstein came and he saw this discovery, he came to the public and he said, I now see the necessity of a beginning. Now that's Edwin Hubble in the back with the what's it called? With the pipe, right? With the pipe in his mouth. And that's Einstein looking through the telescope, right? And then he came out in public and says, I now see the necessity of a beginning. Okay, the scientists made it official. Now today the scientists, they believe that the universe began 12 to 15 billion years ago at this event called the Big Bang. There was nothing out there. There was no universe out there. There was nothing out there except one thing. There was this small thing out somewhere, smaller than an atom. And all of a sudden, it began to expand. And this is what they refer to as the Big Bang. So this event called the Big Bang, that began by this primordial ball of fire that began to expand. The scientists today, they say that they believe today that it began a finite time ago. So that means it began, it has a beginning. But when they accepted this, now begins the debates, because as soon as you ascribe a beginning to the universe, some of the most fundamental questions now surfaced. And what are those questions? What is the origin of the universe? Where did the universe come from now? We need the answer. Why does everything exist rather than nothing? Does this universe have a purpose? Okay, the universe exists. Why? Why? And what is the fate of this universe, this existence? Where are we going? Where are we heading? So all these are fundamental questions that are actually in everyone's mind. Every single person, regardless of their religion, their belief system, it doesn't matter. It is in the mind of every single person. Do you understand that part of this belief, part of this, belief of the Big Bang is that at this event called the Big Bang, everything, the matter, which is a physical substance, energy, which causes activity, including space and time. Could you imagine? All matter, all energy, space and time, all of these things came into existence at this event called the Big Bang. All of these things came into being at this event called the Big Bang. And this is something the science believes today. So, If all of these things came into existence, I mean, you can, because what is told to us today that we are a byproduct of the Big Bang, because we are matter. We are part of the matter. We have energy. We're in space. So everything, we are byproduct of this. They also believe that part of the belief of the Big Bang is that everything came out of nothing. Nothing. Now if you ask the scientific community what caused the universe, we're still trying to figure that out. Why does the universe exist rather than nothing? The science is still trying to figure that out. So, there's two worldviews when it comes to these questions and this topic of the Big Bang. There's one worldview that says matter, energy, space, and time, they are primary, meaning they came into existence first. And mind, meaning you and me, we are derivative. We came out of that. The other worldview says, no. Mind is primary, meaning there's an intelligent cause to this universe, and that intelligent cause brought matter, energy, space, and time into existence. And there are scientists on both sides. Both sides, there are scientists. Stephen Hawking, the great physicist, astronomer, he says that the laws of physics brought the universe into existence. The laws of physics brought everything into existence. But the question that we ask is, can the laws of anything bring anything to existence? Can the laws of anything bring anything into existence? For example, the law of arithmetic, 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's a law. It's there and that's it. Did it bring anything into existence? No. Can the laws of physics bring a jet, or mechanics bring jet engine into existence? No. The laws that just tell us what will happen when you have A and B. You will get C. But where did A and B come from in the first place? If I say to you that if I put $1,000 in my bank account and I expect the laws of arithmetic to multiply them, I'll be permanently bankrupt. But if a mind intercepts now and I go to the bank and I deposit another $1,000, then the laws of arithmetic would tell me how it is that now I have $2,000. That's what the laws do. They just tell you that if you have A and B, you will get C, but you need to get A and B first. So the laws of anything cannot bring anything into existence. You know, every single human being, deep inside, they question themselves. And they ask these fundamental questions. Now, Allah in the Quran says, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى مَعَاذِيرًا, that every human being is a witness against himself, even if he throws forward tons of excuses. Deep inside, a person knows if he's right or wrong. Now, coming back to those fundamental questions, by the way, Stephen Hawking, when he said that the laws of physics brought everything into existence, of course it doesn't make sense, number one. But he brought another theory into existence. He said, perhaps there are millions and billions and gazillions and bajillions of universes out there. He said, well, who knows? Maybe there's so many universes out there, and our universe happens to be just one of those universes. And we're so lucky that in our universe, everything just is so well programmed. It seems to be programmed, but it's not. We just became very lucky. We won the lottery. we won the jackpot. How lucky can we become? Wow. How lucky can we become that there's just one universe out of billions and gazillions of universes. Our universe just has everything. Everything is so finely tuned. Everything. And we're going to talk about that as we move on. Richard Dawkins, a biologist, world-renowned atheist and proponent of Darwinian theory of evolution, when he was asked the question, what is the cause of this universe and what is the purpose of this universe, he said, science is still trying to figure that out. But that does not stop each one of us from asking this question to ourselves. It will keep you, these questions will continue to haunt you. Also, in the last 40 years or so, scientists, they have discovered that there are certain mathematical numbers in fundamental physics, about 20 different numbers in physics, that describe the fundamental features and elements that make up our universe. These numbers have a very precise and fixed value, such as the mass of an electron. You go down to the basic elements of the universe. The mass of electron, the mass of a proton, the mass of a neutron, the speed of light, the strength of gravity, the cosmological constant, meaning the rate of expansion of this universe. Do you know that this universe is constantly expanding? And this law behind that. And many other laws that are so finely tuned to a very intricate mathematical value as to make our existence possible. Why is it that these constants have these values? They are so finely tuned that if these values were to be altered by even a hair's breadth, no life would be possible. I'll give you an example. No life would exist at all. The scientists, they have found that the strength of gravity, for example, gravity, everybody knows gravity? That's gravity, right? The strength of gravity, they have found that if it varied in one part, in 10 to the 60th parts, I mean, one with 60 zeros after it. If it varied in 1 out of 10 to the 60th parts, then the universe could not exist. It would either expand so fast that nothing would form, or it would expand so slowly that it would collapse within itself. Another example, the expansion rate of the universe. The scientists today, they say that if the expansion rate of this universe varied in one part, in 10 to the 120 parts, that's a huge number. 1 in 10 to the 120 parts. Then nothing would exist. And the crazy thing is what? That all of this had to be precisely fixed 1 second after the Big Bang. 1 second after the Big Bang began, all of these numbers had to be precisely and finely tuned and fixed from the onset. Such mind-boggling detail that even Stephen Hawking, the great physicist of our time, even he says what? Listen to his words very carefully. He said, the remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. Seem to be finely tuned. It is amazing then to believe that all of this came from mere chance by completely unguided and undirected process, merely based upon chance. Now, if you look at the pyramid of complexity in physics, we have something called the pyramid of complexity that explains the different structures of the universe. We have all the way on the bottom, we have the quarks, and then we have the nucleons, and then we have the atoms, and then we have the molecules, and then we have the cells, and we have the organisms, and then we get the brains. All of this structure, it just came from mere chance, through an unguided, undirected process. This precision, this complexity, this diversity, this organization, this information, this sequence, organized information, all of this, this gigantic universe about which we are just starting to learn about, and we have the audacity to jump to such huge conclusion that there is absolutely no intelligent cause behind it. And we just began learning about our universe. Stephen Hawking, going back to the great scholar, Stephen Hawking, he said, again, I want you to listen to keywords. What was the keyword that he said before? Seem. Look at this one. He says, our universe and its laws appear to have a design, meaning someone designed it. Appears like that. It appears like that. It appears like someone very, very intelligent, right? Really intelligent designed it. Our universe and its laws appear to have a design that both is tailor-made to support us, and if we are to exist, leaves little room for alteration. That is not easily explained and raises the natural question of why it is that way. The discovery relatively recently of the extreme fine-tuning of so many laws of nature could lead at least some of us back to the old idea that this grand design is the work of some grand designer. Allahu Akbar. You see, you know, the inner self speaks to you. It speaks to you. The old idea. Okay, who said the old idea is the wrong idea? The old idea that God made everything, right? For them is old idea. He said at least some of us can lead, looking at everything out there, the fine-tuned universe, it is very plausible to say some designer made this design. But no, he rejects this inner self speaking, which is in each one of us, and he continues and he says, that is not the answer of modern science. However, our universe seems to be one of many, each with different laws. Going back to the multiverse, that thing over there. And there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that there are universes aside from our universe. Absolutely nothing. But you know, when you got nothing to say and you just want to throw out a cheap shot, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. And this, no doubt, is a cheap shot. And by the way, I'm not saying this. I'm not a scientist. And oh, by the way, this is one other thing they throw at you. Excuse me, sir. What did you study? Excuse me. What background? Do you have some degree in science? Excuse me, sir. 1 plus 1 equals 2. I don't need to be a mathematician to say that. 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's a fact. I don't need to have a degree to say that. It's a fact. I'm a student of Richard Dawkins. I'm a student of Christopher Hitchens. I'm a student of Lawrence Krauss. I'm a student of Sam Harris. They're the one who taught me everything. And this is what I love to do. I love learning. So I sit on YouTube for hours every day and I listen to their debates. Right? So I learned everything from them, by the way. Thank you. So Stephen Hawking, he goes to this idea, which has absolutely no evidence whatsoever. So he said, look, there's billions of universes out there. And these are, by the way, these are not planets and these are not galaxies. These are universes, multiverse, called the multiverse. Each one of these is a universe with billions of galaxies in them. Okay, what's the proof of that? He said, ours is just one of them. You know, we just became so lucky, so lucky, so lucky that everything just comes out so finely tuned. Everything is tailor-made for us, and we're here, ta-da, talking about it today. Sir Isaac Newton. Does anybody know this man, Sir Isaac Newton? Sir Isaac Newton, by the way, one of, or perhaps the greatest physicist of all times. Could you believe that? Sir Isaac Newton was, not that I'm using as a proof, but Sir Isaac Newton was a monotheist. He was Christian, but he rejected Trinity, he rejected worship of Jesus, right? He believed in God, he believed in God Almighty. He was a monotheist. Now, nobody would call him stupid. No one would call him stupid. He was a monotheist. Anybody knows Albert Einstein? Right. Albert Einstein, he also believed in God, though not a personal God. But you know, the most that we can say about him, that he was an agnostic. He wasn't sure, but he was not an atheist. Arthur Eddington, a polymath of early 20th century. You know what's a polymath? He was an astronomer, he was a physicist, he was a mathematician, right? So Arthur Eddington, he said, he questioned the notion that this order was a byproduct or a result of chaos. Because that's what it means when you say everything came from chance with undirected process. You're saying everything came out of chaos. Chaos, right? So he says, he questioned that notion that everything come out of chaos. And this is what he said. He said, a supernatural is the only plausible explanation of this universe. Alan Sandage, the first astronomer to discover the age of this universe. You know when we say 12 to 15 billion years old universe? That was this guy. This is the guy. Alan Sandage, the first astronomer to discover the age of this universe, he said, look, though God is a mystery, to him of course, though God is a mystery, but the only explanation for the miracle of existence, of why there is something rather than nothing. He called it the miracle of existence. It has to be a miracle. How is it possible? Everything just perfect. Can't be. It came out of chaos. Wow. Let's go to this part. Is it Muslim? Got a beard? No kufi. Right? So that, my brothers and sisters, that was regarding the origin of the universe. I didn't make any conclusions, did I? Did I say it was Allah? I didn't make any conclusions. I leave the conclusions to you. Right? I leave the conclusion to you. Because all this fine-tuned universe, right? And no answers whatsoever from the scientific community. Now you go and do your research and find out. Let's come to the second part, and this is where we're going to conclude, which is our origin. Human beings, where do we come from? Universe we talked about already. Where do we come from, the human beings? The origin of the human being on earth. Well, today, the overwhelming number of scientists, they accept Darwinian theory of evolution as a scientific explanation of our origin. And this is taught throughout school curriculums. Darwin, he published his book on the origin of species in 1859. So, pretty long time ago, around less than 200 years ago, but very long ago. 1859, he published his book on the origin of species, explaining how all living forms and organisms today, they share a common ancestry. If you look at that, behind this writing, there's a tree. And there's a tree which comes down to one trunk. He said that, and we need to define what evolution is before we move on, because that's very important. What is evolution? When you talk to someone and you talk about, no, we're against evolution. Okay, what is evolution? Evolution means, at least the one that they're contending. Evolution it means that all living beings today, all of the living beings today evolved from simpler pre-existing organisms through natural selection acting on random variations. So evolution can mean, number one, common ancestor, meaning everybody, you and dogs and cats and birds and tortoises and fish and whatever. We all have one ancestor, one grandpa, right? And the second, part of that is that this happened through millions and millions of years. So, by the way, it is not observable. You cannot observe millions and millions and millions of years. Okay. So, by the way, that's also belief, because you can observe it in the laboratory. So it happened through millions of years. And number three, this is the most amazing part. All of this happened through the process called natural selection acting on random variations and mutations. Meaning what? All of this occurred through mere chance, unguided, undirected process. Nature mimicked the intelligence. Now, what does that come down to? Meaning through millions and millions of years, organisms changed into beings that exist today. His idea proposed that the existence of living beings could be explained by a result of natural process called the natural selection, without any need to resort to a creator or any other external agent or supernatural agent. So the idea of Darwin was what? Design without a designer. You can have design without a designer, but you cannot get computers without, those who made computers. Right? You cannot have programs without programmers, but you can get all this beautiful universe without any designer. Isn't that amazing? That's so conceivable, isn't it? It makes so much sense. Anyways, so Richard Dawkins, coming back to Richard Dawkins, because I love these people, man. Richard Dawkins, who admires Darwin as his hero, he said, listen to this. Again, look for the keywords. Are you ready? All right, look at this. Richard Dawkins said, biology is a study of complicated things that give the appearance, oh man, look at these words, that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. Wow, not only having been designed, but also having a purpose. But he said, but it's just appearance, but completely illusory. It's illusion. Illusion. It looks like it has a purpose. It looks like it's designed, but it's illusion, man. Everything just came about to be just like that. Now it's like me saying, right? Right? You see, I'm like a manager. Got a lot of keys to a lot of doors. I want to take each one of these keys out and throw it with a keychain up, boom, and I expect everything to come back, boom, bam. That's a miracle, man. That's called what? That's called natural selection. So the natural selection, which again is a completely unguided, undirected process based merely upon chance, can mimic the power of intelligence. First time I heard that. In his early life, Charles Darwin, he had the luxury of adventuring the world. And he actually visited islands called the Galapagos Islands, in which he saw a group of birds, a type of birds they call the finches. He saw the finches on one island different from the finches on another island. He saw tortoises on one island, they have a shell that is different from the tortoises on the other island. He said that all of these animals, they perfectly adapted to their environment. But you know, that's called adaptation. And by the way, that was the basis of his theory of evolution. We believe that. No one contends that. We believe that over time. By the way, one of the definitions of evolution is change over time. We believe change over time. Why? Because science has recently proved that with naked eye. They took, the birds from one island to the other island, and just over decades, the birds' beaks changed. Because he said what? He said, wow. He realized that in islands where there was tropical climate, wet climate, that birds with small beaks, birds with long beaks, birds with sharp beaks, and birds with not sharp beaks, all of them survived equally. Why? Because tropical climate, and everyone can reach the food chain, everyone can get the seeds, and everyone is happy. But I say in more drier climates, the islands that had dry climates, the seeds were in hard, dry shells. So only those birds that had sharp beaks and long beaks could reach the food chain. So what happened? The birds with short beaks, they died. Why? Because you don't get food, you're gonna starve. And when you starve, you're gonna die, and your genes don't get passed on. So this is something understood. Nobody is going to contend that. No one in their right mind. We believe that, no problem, right? Over time, changes occur, but that's called adaptation. You adapt perfectly to your environment. But why is it that today, and he gave, by the way, an example, that human beings can do that. You know, if you have sheeps, right, and you want to have the wooliest of sheeps, then the breeder will only let the wooliest of sheeps to mate. So you're going to have babies that are going to grow up to be wooliest, right? So what's going to happen to the other sheeps? Don't let them reproduce. So what? You know, cut them, eat them, whatever, put them on the plate, right? And they don't reproduce, their genes don't get passed on. So he said that nature can do the same thing. Nature can mimic what the human intelligence can do. Now, but the question is, Darwin, he never addressed the origin of the first organism. What does that mean? You see that tree that I'm showing you here? At the end, it goes down to one living cell, right? You know, because all living organisms, they come from where? Living cells. So you can go all the way back, you're going to have one living cell. And that one living cell, over time, right, random mutation, right, changes, and now you got one, and you got two, you got three, you got four, all of this appears, and now you got different things. So, but Darwin, he never addressed the origin of the first organism, which is a living cell. from the tree of life. Why then the scientists, they use his theory to prove the origin of the living beings today, all living beings? I'll tell you why. Look at this. It's because of the cell research that was existing in 1859. Yes. What was the cell research at that time? What was a living cell to them at that time? This is due to the fact that at Darwin's time, 1859, a living cell was thought to be a very simple substance. They thought it was a simple jello-like substance with some chemicals, right? So a living cell was a byproduct of, some chemical reactions, especially with such microscopes of that time. Right? So, but it was only later, in 1950s and 60s, that's about more than 100 years after Darwin. In 1950s and 60s, with the molecular biological revolution, the explosion of research that not only revealed the sheer complexity of a living cell, and the hundreds and thousands of diverse mechanisms involved in a living cell, which not only questioned the power of natural selection, but destroyed and outstripped the evolutionary model. It just seems that the more we advance in technology and research, you see, telescopes that existed, and everything was stars, and then we got the nice telescopes, and now it turns into galaxies. And then you had those microscopes like these in 1859, not literally, and then you got the microscopes of today, right? All of this, it seems that the more we advance in technology and research, the more we are discovering about a universe, the more difficult it is becoming to explain our universe, to explain anything. The huge dome telescopes, the advanced microscopes, the fine-tuned laws, the Fibonacci code, search about that, the golden ratio, search about that. But and by the way, Allah tells us to look at the universe, to do research, and Allah tells us that the more you look at the universe, your eyes will return to you humbled with no answers. No answers. So, in 1950s and 1960s, Francis Crick and James Watson, two great scientists, what did they do? These two scientists, they elucidated the DNA molecule. The DNA molecule. Now, to get a simple idea, speaking lay term, because today we're speaking lay term, so everyone can understand. Look, your father passes his chromosomes through his sperms, and in one ejaculation, you can have about 30 to 50 million sperms in one ejaculation. 30 to 50 million sperms. Only one is selected to penetrate the egg inside the woman. Now that then makes what? 46 chromosomes in this. Now you get 23 from mom, 23 from dad. Not 24, right guys? It's not proven. Yeah, that's a missing link, yes. They're never gonna find it. Because monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, orangutans, they got 48 chromosomes. 24 from mommy, 24 from dad. Oh, it's just one pair missing, man. It's so close. Well, let me tell you something. Right? We share 50% of our DNA with bananas. That doesn't mean we came from bananas. It's up to you if you want to believe that. Just because we got a similarity, right? We share a great percent of DNA with pigs, right? But would you accept it if I say, "Hey, pig"? Right? I don't think we accept being called monkey, right? Anyway, so the father transfers the chromosomes, right, with sperm, and then it penetrates the egg, making 46 chromosomes. These 46 chromosomes, they store the DNA molecules. By the way, each chromosome holds 92 DNA molecules. Each chromosome stores 92 DNA molecules. These DNA molecules, they store your genes and information, the blueprint, the instruction, organized information of how the amino acids, the building blocks of life, the amino acids, how these amino acids are to be organized to make proteins. And by the way, proteins are the toolbox in your body. That's what tells every single thing inside your cell what to do. It's like this is a hammer, this is a sawzall, this is a, whatever. Right? That is the toolbox. Right? Could you imagine chromosomes coming down to what? Storing DNA molecules. And this DNA molecule, each one of them stores what? The genes. And these genes store what? The blueprint, the instruction, organized information of how the amino acids, the building blocks of life, are to be arranged, and also the instruction and organized code to build protein and protein machines, which allow the cell to stay alive and thrive. Each cell holds about 3 billion letters of information. Each cell stores about 3 billion letters of information. And this is too much information. Now what? I didn't stop here yet. There's another molecule called the RNA. And this molecule called the RNA, it makes a copy of the DNA to process. Now this instruction that the RNA copies from the DNA, what does it do? The RNA copies all of the instruction from the DNA, and this instruction now is used to organize and arrange the amino acids. There are about 20 different amino acids. To organize these 20 different amino acids in different chains. And this arrangement of chains causes certain folding to take place, forming a structure. Now these folded structures form into 3D shapes. And each of these shapes forms a protein. And how many proteins are in your body? About 100,000 different proteins. 100,000 different proteins in our body. And how many cells? Wow. Trillions of cells. Each one of them have all of this crazy information that I just talked about. Each protein has a different function. Where did all this organized information come from? If you want to make your computer, make your computer do something new, right? For example, very simple, look at this. See, that's my phone, by the way. It's my phone. I'm not about to record anyone, don't worry. One, open up. It's not accepting my fingerprint. Hello? Had to be today? All right, look at this. Something as simple as this. You can't just place an icon of light in your home screen and press it. The light is not turning on. No, it's a program, right? And our smartphones, our computers, there are so many programs. If you want your computer to do a new function, what do you have to do? You have to put a program in there. And program comes from programmers. We're talking common sense here. Bill Gates. Who's Bill Gates? Yes, he's spending about $10 million for vaccinations this year. Yeah. No, but who's Bill Gates? The creator of Microsoft. A very smart man, right? No doubt. Bill Gates, this is what he said. He said, human DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any we've ever created. Where did the first living cell come from? Well, I'll tell you where it came from. Jeffrey Baylor, who's a professor of geochemistry, and who's an advocate of evolution, by the way. He believes in the Darwinian theory of evolution. In 1998, just as we were about to step into the next century, just listen to what he said. Jeffrey Bader, he's a professor of geochemistry. He said, I'm going to try to pretend to be him. Today, as we leave the 20th century, we still face the biggest problem that we had when we entered the 20th century. How did life originate on Earth? Isn't that amazing? Whole century of research, and we still got no answer. And I want to, how much time do I have, by the way? 3 minutes? Okay, I'm going to try to rush through this, but it's very important, very, very important. I want to bring your attention, that's a cell today, by the way. I want to bring your attention to this. Now, this is, you see on top, we're human beings on top. You see that guy with his truck? Right? Now, if you go down, if you dig down, there's different stratas where we find fossils today. Now, the Jurassic is right in the middle, 199 million years ago. You go far below the Jurassic era, the dinosaur era. You go far beyond that. You see, right down there, it's called the Cambrian strata. 542 million years ago, right there, very, very far down there. 542 million years ago, this strata stretching a period of about 20 to 25 million years. You know what they found out today? And who found out today? You know who found this out? Charles Darwin in 1859. He found this out today at that time. You know what they found out? Look, most of the major organisms, about 30 to 40 different major organisms, they suddenly appear in the Cambrian strata without any ancestral precursors. Meaning what? In the pre-Cambrian strata, they couldn't find the tree. Where did all these 30 to 40 major organisms come from? Right? Because according to Darwinian theory of evolution, everything has a tree. It has to go down to that one organism. There is no precursors for these 30 to 40 major organisms. In fact, the tree of life is upside down there. Amazing. And he said, as though just somebody put them there. Miracle. They just appear there. And by the way, Charles Darwin himself, he said, this is this, by the way, is the greatest blow to the theory of Darwinian theory of evolution. And Charles Darwin himself said that he was troubled by this. He said, I don't know how this happened. He said, but he left it. He said, in the future, scientists, they're going to do more research and they're going to find out. And he said, if they don't find out, my theory will collapse. Well, up until now, it is collapsing. It has collapsed until proven. Then we can talk about it. But I want to go to the last final part of our proposition. So the Cambrian explosion, they call it the explosion because 30 to 40 organisms just appear there, major organisms. So what's left? Propaganda, right? And they're gonna make nice Photoshop is a miracle of today, by the way, right? They make nice Photoshop, they make movies, right? And put it out how we came, the origin of human beings, right? All the videos that you see monkeys appearing first, and then they're standing up, and all of a sudden, it becomes a human being with no clothes, and then they wear some clothes up, right? Alright, so we're coming to this part, which is ape-like man. Ape-like man. Ape-like man theories are presented as facts. For your information, how many ape species? I want anyone to just take a wild guess. How many ape species existed on Earth? 100? 10? 6,500 different ape species existed. most of them are extinct, and that is the paradise for evolutionists to practice their imagination. Right? Most of them are extinct. Pick up one. Ah, this must be it. Ah, no, it didn't work. Pick this up. Ah, this must be it. No, it doesn't work. That's their paradise to practice their imagination. Yeah, because they claim you're religious people, that you made a lot of imaginary figures, like God is an imaginary figure. So we are the one practicing imaginations, right? But in reality, who's practicing imagination? Let's find out. 6,500 different ape species lived on Earth. Majority are extinct. Look at it. This is the most famous one, right? Just recently, we celebrated the birthday of Lucy, right? Lucy's real name is Australopithecus, found in 1924, dated to 3 to 4 million years old. They found out that this was just an old ape species. Just an old ape species. So now, next one, they found out the Piltdown fossil. Discovered in 1912. They say, whoa, this is the middleman. This is the middleman. That's where he came from. The Piltdown guy. Right? It was in museums for 30 years. And after more than 30 years in museums, as a proof of where we came from, guess what? Oh my goodness. This is what they find out. In 1949, they found out it was a forgery. It was an orangutan's jaw attached to a human skull. Forgery. Are you that desperate? Don't do that. It makes science look bad. By the way, we're not against science. In fact, we brought science to America and Europe. That 1,000 years of black hole in history that no one wants to talk about, in which the Muslims are in golden age and Europe was sleeping in dark ages. Right? All the surgeons were with us. All the medical doctors were with us. All the astronomers were with us. We are the ones who created this camera. Go back to the Arabs. Right? The computers. Who discovered the number 0? Go find out. The number system that everybody's using today. Who made this number system? Well, go find out. Who made the clocks? Let's go find out. All of this. We're not against science. But we're against non-science or nonsense. We're against, I say this to everybody. We have, in religious communities, we have some people that are outright evil. Right or no? Muslims, there are some Muslims that are outright evil. We have some in Christianity. We have some in Judaism. We have some in Buddhism. We have some in every religion. There's black sheep in every community. And just like that, we have some scientists that are outright evil. They have their own evil agendas, their own personal agendas, and they are doing whatever they can to put their agenda ahead. So the Piltdown fossil, it was discovered that it was actually an orangutan's jaw attached to the human skull. And then, what's next? Let's talk about it. Oh, the Nebraska man. Nebraska man discovered in 1922 from a single tooth. Could you imagine? You take a single tooth and you draw an image around it. This is a man. We'll find out his tooth. We'll find his tooth. We're trying to figure out where we can find other stuff. We'll find a tooth. This is a man. We came from this Nebraska man. Congratulations, Nebraska. 1922. And guess what? It was discovered that this single tooth was from a wild pig tooth. It was a wild pig tooth, yes. They took a wild pig tooth and they made a Nebraska man out of that. And then we had the Neanderthal man, 1856, dismissed in 1960 by the scientific community. Dismissed in 1960. And then we had, these big names, right? Zinjanthropus. In 1959, dismissed in 1960. Next. Let me try to pronounce that. Ramapithecus. 1964. Dismissed in 1979. All of this ridiculous. Ridiculous or patheticus. All of them. Dismissed. Finally, you may ask, oh, what about these? Oh, wait a minute. You got the Homo erectus, you got the Homo ergaster, you got the Homo sapiens. Well, these were just different human species. They were not apes. They were human species. And for your information, Richard Leakey, a paleoanthropologist, he said the differences in these three, Homo erectus, Homo ergaster, Homo sapiens, the difference in their skulls are structural differences which you can even find in different human races today. You can find them even today. Anyways, I conclude. Here we go. You can find differences here, right? I conclude. Isaac Newton. He said this most beautiful system could only proceed from the counsel and the dominion of an intelligent being. So my brothers and sisters, we conclude by saying, I'm not saying to you it was Allah. You may not believe that. But at least, looking at all of this origin of the universe, looking at the origin of the human being, there must be logically an intelligent cause behind all of this, because information, especially organized information, only comes from intelligent beings. So intelligent design is inferring from evidence of the nature that some features of the world are better explained by intelligent cause rather than an unguided, undirected natural process. Thank you.